The term stasis originates from the ancient Greek verb istemai or istemi, signifying standing up or waiting. This term represents a state of inactivity or equilibrium from which a new beginning emerges. In Stasis, Civil War as a Political Paradigm, Agamben explores the role of this concept in his political philosophy. Emphasizing its etymology and the practice of Greek tragedy, Agamben focuses on one aspect of the term stasis, as the act of rising, of standing firmly upright. Stasis is a philosophical archaeological examination of how civil war was conceptualized in ancient Greece and at the beginning of modernity, particularly in the political philosophy of Thomas Hobbes. Agamben aims to demonstrate that studying these seemingly unrelated events reveals civil war as the political paradigm of Western biopolitics. This highlights the crucial role of the concept of stasis in Agamben's philosophy. His broader objective is to move beyond biopolitics toward a communitarian politics, through the establishment of an inoperative form of life, capable of challenging the sovereign's control over the politicization of bare life. Notably, stasis has been included as the third chapter of Agamben's work, Homo Sacer. In this context, Agamben provides a significant critique of Carl Schmitt's interpretation of Hobbes, seeking to unveil what he calls the Schmittian dispositif of friend and foe. Agamben himself underscores the importance of this critique in the Italian edition of Homo Sacer, stating it as a reason for its superiority over the French and English editions. The comprehensive exploration of stasis in Agamben's work sheds light on the nuances of his political thought. Agamben places stasis in opposition to kinesis, in shaping his forthcoming political ideas. Stasis, according to Agamben, is intricately linked to the operational logic of one of his widely discussed concepts, the sovereign's state of exception. Consequently, stasis serves as a mechanism by which the Western biopolitical system involves bare life in politics by excluding it. In this context, stasis is diametrically opposed to, yet structurally related to, the concept of kinesis, or movement. Kinesis is fundamental to Aristotle's theory of potential and habit. This aspect holds significant importance in understanding Agamben's political framework. Overcoming Western biopolitics requires challenging Aristotle's belief that humanity must always have a purpose or task. Agamben states in his essay that he does not aim to formulate a theory of civil war or sociology. Agamben lays the groundwork for a notionistic and systematic examination of stasis in the West. Agamben's categorization of paradigms as forms of knowledge in signatura rerum suggests that his reflections may serve as foundational elements for a broader political philosophical theory of civil war. Agamben's argument regarding the transformation of the function, situation, and form of civil war after classical Greece supports this interpretation. Agamben draws on concepts from Homo Sacer and Means Without End, regarding the Greeks' differentiation between zo and bios. Zo signifies the basic fact of living common to all living beings, while bios indicates the specific form or way of living unique to an individual or group. Initially, it seems that the Greek polis kept the managerial paradigm of the household, oikonomia, separate from the political dominium, government. However, Agamben argues that civil war in classical Greece revealed the oikos, giving it a political character, and creating a zone of interaction between the family and the city. Agamben contends that civil war in ancient Greece served as a threshold where family relationships were repoliticized. When the tension toward the polis prevailed, and the family bond seemed to weaken, Stasis intervened to recodify family relationships in political terms. This delicate equilibrium between the managerial and political paradigms governing the family and the city did not endure beyond classical Greece. After this period, Agamben observes a tendency in the West to depoliticize the city by transforming it into a house or a family governed by blood relations or economic operations. This trend is cyclically interrupted by phases where everything unpolitical is mobilized and politicized. According to Agamben, the function, situation, and form of civil war change depending on the prevailing tendency. Agamben takes an unconventional approach by blending the metaphorical interpretation of the Leviathan's cover with an eschatological analysis of its content. He also examines decisive elements of law, with a particular focus on Pauline messianism and the concept of parousia, the second coming of Christ at the end of time. Drawing heavily from his previous works, Agamben challenges the common view, influenced by Schmidt, that the modern governmental system delays the arrival of the kingdom of God, parousia. Agamben analyzes the third part of Leviathan, which contains a veritable treatise on the kingdom of God. Contrary to prevailing interpretations, he argues that Hobbes asserts a real political kingdom of God, to be restored by Christ at the end of time, both in the Old and New Testament. Agamben suggests that the kingdom of God on earth will only be realized during the second coming of Christ, and until then, the analyses presented in the earlier parts of Leviathan remain valid. From an eschatological perspective, Agamben posits a coordination between the earthly and celestial kingdoms, and he contends that the Leviathan will disappear when the political realization of the kingdom of God occurs. Agamben reveals the significance of his interpretation of Hobbes for his envisioned politics beyond biopolitics. Viewing the Leviathan from an eschatological perspective, Agamben interprets the head of the Leviathan as having a specific eschatological meaning or function. He notes the absence of tiny bodies in the head of the Leviathan, and suggests that it represents the head of a political body formed by the people. This image, according to Agamben, directly stems from Pauline conception. The Leviathan, in this interpretation, becomes the profane counterpart of the relationship between Christ and the ecclesia, which is inseparable from Pauline eschatology. Agamben proposes that at the end of time, in the kingdom of heaven, there will be no distinction between the head and the body, and only then can the concept of the Leviathan be erased, allowing the people to discover their own body. The modern state, according to Agamben, aligns with the eschatological beast destined for annihilation at the end of time. Contrary to Schmidt's view, Agamben asserts that the modern state is not the catechon. Instead, contemporary politics is grounded in the secularization of eschatology. The relation between autonomous powers in Hobbes' politics, as outlined by Agamben, is eschatologically connected, meaning the first power must disappear when the second is realized. Essentially, Agamben's Pauline messianism calls for the destruction or destitution of the modern state and its biopolitical prerogatives. Agamben encourages us to see the creation of the Leviathan as a step in the modern circular movement of biopolitics, starting from civil war, progressing to the disunited multitude adopting the people-king paradigm, transitioning to the dissolved multitude, and returning to civil war. In the formation of the modern city or body politic, the disunited multitude transforms into the people. Paradoxically, when giving form to the sovereign, the people simultaneously disappears, giving way to the dissolved multitude which lacks political significance, and serves as the unpolitical element upon whose exclusion the city is founded. This logic applies to monarchies, democracies, and aristocracies alike. Agamben emphasizes that in the city, there is only the multitude, as the people has already vanished into the sovereign, as depicted on the Leviathan's cover. This insight is crucial for understanding Agamben's philosophy and political project, revealing that the city is founded on the division of life into bare life and politically qualified life. Civil war becomes a persistent element in this framework. Agamben argues that if the dissolved multitude is the sole human presence in the city, and since the multitude is the subject of civil war, this implies that civil war remains perpetually possible within the state. Even after the eschatological analysis, Agamben maintains that until the second coming of Christ, the body politic can only dissolve into a multitude, and the Leviathan can only coexist with Behemoth, symbolizing the potential for civil war. Drawing from Agamben's Aristotelian terminology, civil war exists at the threshold between actuality and potentiality, lingering in the shadows of social relations. It continually defines and reminds the body politic of its obscure and demonic origins, as civil war is seen as a projection of the state of nature into the city.